People believed Pastor Creflo lived a life no storm could touch. With his massive influence, remarkable wealth, global fan base, and the steady confidence of a man convinced he was called for greatness, he appeared untouchable. But beneath that shining surface, something far more fragile was slowly breaking apart. In the past few months, the same preacher who once spoke boldly about unshakable prosperity has suddenly found himself standing face to face with consequences he never saw coming. And as difficult revelations begin to spill into the open, Creflo is now confronting the one reality he never prepared his followers to face: the haunting possibility that everything he built may have rested on a painful and life-altering mistake. His rise began in a school cafeteria, not in a mansion or a glittering megachurch. Creflo Augustus Jr.'s life started far from anything glamorous. He was born on January 28, 1962 in College Park, Georgia, inside a small home built on strict discipline and deep faith. His father worked as a police officer, and his mother served meals in the cafeteria at Kathleen Mitchell Elementary School. That quiet detail, his mother behind a counter serving food, would come back into his life many years later in a way he never imagined. As a young boy, becoming a pastor wasn't even a thought. He dreamed of being a professional football player. He carried that dream all the way into the early 1980s when he joined West Georgia College, but one serious injury destroyed that future and pushed him onto a path he never expected. During his recovery, he joined Bible study groups just to ease the boredom. But one day he said he felt something change inside him, like he had been spiritually awakened. That moment completely shifted the direction of his life. Soon after, he began hosting small Bible study gatherings of his own, and to his surprise, those meetings kept growing. One of the people who attended was a young woman named Taffy Bolton. She would later become his wife and the partner who stood with him through every step of his ministry journey. By 1984, he earned a degree in educational therapy and took a job at Bronner Pediatric Institute, helping people with learning difficulties. He was good at the work, but even then, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being called to do something else, something bigger. Then in 1986, he made the decision that changed everything. He started World Changers Ministries Christian Center inside the cafeteria of Kathleen Mitchell Elementary School, the same cafeteria where his mother once served food and the same school where he was part of the first wave of Black students after integration. Only 8 people showed up at that first service. But his message, simple, bold, and filled with confidence, grew quickly. More people came, the crowd got bigger, and as more seats filled, his vision expanded. What began in a school cafeteria was slowly becoming one of the most powerful megachurches in America. The prosperity message he preached would make him famous around the world. But hidden behind all of that success were quiet cracks that would eventually grow into something much more serious. The message that built an empire and sparked a firestorm. As World Changers Ministries grew, the message that lifted Creflo to global fame also became the center of his biggest controversies. During the late 1980s and throughout the 1990s, he polished a doctrine that would define his entire platform: the prosperity gospel. He taught that faith, positive declarations, and generous giving, especially tithing, could open the door to financial success and a better life. To struggling families, it sounded like hope. To people desperate for a fresh start, it seemed like a divine plan. And with every sermon, every TV appearance, and every promise of breakthrough, the crowds kept coming. In 1991, his ministry became so large, he changed the name to World Changers Church International, a sign of how far he believed his influence would reach. His radio and TV program, Changing Your World, pushed his teachings into millions of homes. By the mid-1990s, he wasn't just a pastor from Georgia anymore. He was a global televangelist. People from Africa, Canada, India, and the UK tuned in, believing his message could unlock the financial miracle they've been praying for. Then, in 1995, the World Dome, an 8,500-seat sanctuary costing nearly $20 million, was completed. Dollar proudly said it was built without any bank loans, using only faith and giving. By the 2000s, World Changers Church International reported more than 30,000 members and close to $70 million in yearly revenue. The ministry expanded into cities like New York, Los Angeles, Toronto, Johannesburg, and Australia's Gold Coast. Dollar even announced a dream: 500 fellowship churches around the globe. A dream that started in a cafeteria was becoming an empire. But as his influence kept rising, so did the questions, and soon the cracks in his foundation would be impossible to ignore. For all the success surrounding him, something uneasy was building underneath. The more he preached about prosperity, the louder people questioned the wealth he seemed to gain from that very message. His supporters pointed to him as proof that faith brought abundance, but his critics saw something very different. A pastor whose lifestyle looked more like that of a top CEO than a spiritual leader. As the luxury homes, Rolls-Royces, and private jets kept appearing, the gap between admiration and suspicion widened. Yet the momentum never slowed. Dollar believed he was creating a powerful spiritual movement. Others wondered if he was actually building something fragile, something that could collapse the moment one major belief in his teachings was challenged. And that moment was getting closer. His growing wealth and high-end lifestyle became the first visible cracks in his foundation. As Creflo Dollar's ministry expanded, so did the attention on how he personally lived. His level of wealth stood out, even among other prosperity preachers. Many of his followers lived on modest incomes, with the average household in College Park earning around $29,000 a year. Meanwhile, Dollar owned a $3.4 million estate in Fayetteville, Georgia. The property stretched across 182 acres and featured a huge fountain, a pool, tall stone walls, and a private gated driveway that kept it hidden from the public. To some, it symbolized success. To others, it showed how far he had drifted from the everyday people he preached to. That wasn't his only home. He also had a luxury condo in New York City's Time World Center, bought for $2.5 million and later sold for $3.75 million, making a $1 million profit. There was another home in New Jersey worth more than $2 million. His garage reportedly included several Rolls-Royces, with at least one valued at nearly $460,000. To his supporters, these were blessings from God. To his critics, they were warnings of extravagance. Even his way of traveling reflected his growing ambitions. Before the infamous jet scandal ever happened, Dollar already used a Gulfstream G3, an older private jet that had experienced serious mechanical problems, including an engine issue over the Pacific Ocean and a failure during takeoff in London. He insisted that commercial airlines couldn't match his demanding travel schedule and that a private jet was necessary for ministry work, not a personal luxury. But every new asset, every house, car, and plane, slowly weakened the trust many people had in his message. Watchdog groups started raising alarms. Ministry Watch repeatedly gave his organization an F rating for financial transparency, because he refused to release basic audited financial reports. Between 2007 and 2011, the U.S. Senate Finance Committee launched an investigation into him and 5 other televangelists, trying to determine whether ministry money was being used for personal benefit. Dollar refused to hand over his financial records, arguing that the government had no right to examine them. Legally, he made it through untouched. No charges were filed. But publicly, the damage was unmistakable. For the first time, the solid image he had built began to show real fractures. His critics saw a troubling pattern emerging: wealth with no accountability, power without transparency. And then came the moment that exploded everything wide open, one of the most infamous episodes of his career. The $65 million jet scandal that shook the entire nation. By 2015, Creflo Dollar was used to controversy. But he wasn't prepared for the outrage that erupted when he launched Project G650, a fundraising campaign asking his followers to help him buy a Gulfstream G650 private jet worth $65 million. The announcement shocked even people who had supported him for years. Dollar insisted the jet had nothing to do with luxury and everything to do with serving God. He explained that his old aircraft, a 1984 Gulfstream G3, had become unsafe after serious mechanical failures, including an engine shutting down over the Pacific and the nose gear collapsing in London. In his mind, flying on commercial airlines wasn't possible because, as he put it, airlines didn't follow God's schedule. Soon after, his ministry launched a campaign asking 200,000 supporters to give at least $300 each. The request spread fast across social media, news stations, and church communities. Almost immediately, aviation experts started raising questions. The ministry claimed the new jet could carry 100,000 pounds of food and supplies for charity work. But the G650 storage space was only about 2,500 pounds, far below what they advertised. Before long, a major backlash erupted. Many people wanted to know why a pastor needed the most expensive private jet on earth. Others wondered why he didn't choose a smaller or cheaper aircraft. Even more questioned why members of his congregation, many struggling financially, had to fund it. Inside Christian circles, the criticism grew louder. Gospel musician Kirk Franklin openly challenged the belief that wealth proved faith, saying it was actually a sign of weak character. As the outrage grew nationwide, the fundraising page quietly disappeared from the internet within days. Yet Dollar refused to step back. During a sermon shortly after, he fired up his congregation by saying, "If I want to believe God for a $65 million plane, you cannot stop me. I'm going to dream until Jesus comes." The cheering inside the church stood in sharp contrast to the anger outside its walls. The controversy stirred up old concerns from the Senate about televangelists and financial transparency. Even though Dollar later acquired private jets through other channels, his public image never fully recovered. To many observers, the plane became a symbol of everything they feared, a preacher whose spiritual message seemed to climb alongside his personal wealth. And while the pressure grew, a deeper, more painful chapter was preparing to unfold. After years of appearing untouchable, leading a worldwide ministry, preaching to millions, and carrying an aura of spiritual authority, Creflo Dollar faced a crisis that started within his own home. In June 2012, inside his house in Fayette County, Georgia, his world shifted dramatically. The same pastor who often spoke about discipline, order, and faith suddenly found himself in handcuffs. According to the police report, Dollar's 15-year-old daughter called authorities when a heated argument went out of control. She told officers that he choked her, forced her to the ground, punched her, and even struck her with a shoe after she refused to obey his decision to stop her from attending a party. Police noted a scratch on her neck, which she said came from the struggle. Dollar, however, denied hurting her intentionally. He claimed the mark was eczema and said he only held her down after she hit him first. He admitted wrestling her to the floor, but rejected the accusations of choking or punching her.
Within hours, news of his arrest spread across the nation. The sight of a well-known pastor being taken away by police clashed sharply with his weekly teachings on family order and spiritual authority. The charges, simple battery and cruelty to children, placed him under the harshest public scrutiny of his career. A few days later, Dollar addressed his congregation and said the accusations were blown out of proportion. His members responded with loud applause, many believing he was the victim of misunderstanding and media exaggeration. Supporters insisted parents had the right to discipline their children. Critics argued that this was not discipline, but violence, and that religious communities too often defended leaders instead of victims. In the end, the case closed quietly. Prosecutors dropped the charges after Dollar completed court-ordered anger management classes. Still, the damage didn't disappear. For the first time, even longtime supporters began to wonder what was truly happening behind the polished public image he presented to the world. As soon as the news of his arrest spread, old questions began to resurface. People started looking again at the mansions, the expensive lifestyle, the lack of financial transparency, and the growing gap between the pastor and the very community he claimed to serve. The arrest wasn't just a family dispute. It pulled back the curtain on the human weakness hidden beneath the empire he spent years building. But what came next shook that empire far more than any headline or scandal. Creflo Dollar made an announcement that stunned both supporters and critics. He admitted publicly that one of the biggest teachings behind his success had been wrong from the beginning. For over 30 years, Creflo Dollar built his ministry on one core message: tithing was a divine command. He preached it on TV, wrote about it in best-selling books, and repeated it in conferences worldwide. To his followers, giving 10% wasn't optional, it was the doorway to God's financial blessings. Many struggled to give, believing they were planting seeds for miracles. Meanwhile, Dollar rose to become one of America's richest pastors with an estimated net worth of $27 million. Then, in June of 2022, everything changed. Standing before his congregation at World Changers Church International, he delivered a sermon called The Great Misunderstanding. And in it, he said something no one thought they would ever hear. His decades of teachings on tithing were wrong. He asked his followers to throw away every book, every DVD, every sermon he had ever created on the subject. Dollar explained that tithing was tied to Old Testament law, and Christians under grace were never meant to give out of pressure, guilt, or fear. The confession sent shockwaves. Some called it brave. Others said it was decades too late. Yet even after admitting the mistake, he made one thing clear: he would not apologize. According to him, the teachings he now rejected were part of the journey that led him to his new understanding. But many questioned the timing. His entire ministry structure and wealth had been built on those same teachings. Critics wondered whether he would return money collected under a doctrine he now dismissed. He offered no refunds, no acknowledgement of financial harm, no deeper transparency. His luxury cars, mansions, and private jets remain untouched. Watchdog groups continued to warn about a lack of accountability. Theologians said the reversal only confirmed what they had been arguing all along, that the prosperity message was built on shaky ground. Even loyal members felt confused and betrayed, struggling to reconcile the new message with what they had been told for years was a spiritual requirement. Creflo Dollar's confession did not end his ministry, but it permanently changed how millions see him. And for the first time, the man who preached certainty, wealth, and divine order is left facing a story where the prosperity he promised others cannot shield him from the consequences of his own words. So what do you think about Pastor Creflo Dollar's recent troubles? Do you believe he should take responsibility for the teachings he now rejects? Share your thoughts in the comments and make sure to like this video and subscribe for more powerful stories just like this.